hope you guys got a chance to look at the minutes. All in favor?
Wait, need a motion.
Need a motion.
Yeah.
Are you?
Yes, I make the motion.
Okay, and second.
All in favor?
All right.
Okay. Thanks. The next line item is the public input. If you guys want to talk about any of the projects, then we can talk about it now before we get to any line item. Okay, if none, we will move to the first line item, Oak Street project presentation. Yeah. So we have 3 companies, I believe, and we got the proposal, and you guys can make a pitch. So as a DDA, our job is to take all this input and we pass on to the mayor and council, and they make the final call on the project. All right, sir? Thank you, guys. The first one is,
Yeah. Fern Gully, if you guys want to come up and present, it'd be wonderful. Thank you.
come on, Adam.
As Mr. Kumar said, my name's Adam Brooks. My family and I are born and raised here in Houston, so we've seen this area absolutely transform along the last few years. The proposition of being a part of that is even more exciting. So it's a little difficult to orient yourself, but this is what we're thinking. Again, projects are always fluid. You know, they change as you get going. This is just an idea. So this is Oak Hill, the one-way facing this way, 332 running right here. What we have is a track, walkway, however you want to call it, that kind of runs the perimeter of the park. Originally, we had talked about a pavilion, possibly 1, maybe 2. The original or the primary location that's best, or our suggestion would be in this lower, flatter area right here. If you want to do 2, another location could be right here. You'll see, and if you want to, I had these right here. Here are some dimensions of it. It's pretty technical, but it'll give you an idea of what we're thinking. A more lifelike rendering are these pictures that you guys can pass around if you'd like. Obviously, this is the larger one, and this would be an example of the smaller ones if you wanted to do the 2 separate. So feel free to pass those around. And as I'm going, do my best not to bounce around too much. But if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to stop. So when you first walk up to the property, it jumps out as there's some prep work that needs to be done. Primarily, we have the stream running along one boundary, pretty overgrown. There's some kudzu, some invasive species there. We were in touch with the Environmental Protection Division, mainly Taylor, and it's all about actually encouraged to clean that up, the invasive, the kudzu, the briars. What we don't want to do is introduce a public area for people to congregate and meet, and then have unwanted interaction with wildlife. I don't like snakes. My name's Adam. But, you know, that would be the primary, you know, I don't want to see things. So, anyway, we would be proposing pushing all this back so you could actually be able to see the stream and the stream bank. And along this walkway, as you know, when I went today, there were areas that you could even do deviations off of this, potentially a nature walk, a portion of a nature walk. If you will, but we would recommend in this tree that, in this picture was taken 2 weeks ago, this tree is already fallen. There's just some cleanup work, and obviously that would take a portion of the expense. The track itself measures almost exactly a quarter mile, so that would take a good amount of material. The material itself, we need to be intentional with what we selected. On the proposal, we're saying gravel or crusher run that would compact, and it would be a good base for whatever the user plan was, but one of the primary considerations was we want to be ADA compliant. You know, we want everybody to be able to enjoy the space, and that would be a concern. And as you go up to asphalt or concrete, there would be adjustments or considerations for that financially. But I won't be mistaken for an artist at all. So again, this would be the track, proposing entrances to the track here on this corner of the parking surface, and this as well. Also, we would propose maybe doing one here if people were walking down from the Depot and the downtown area, the area that we're in right now. But yeah, it would run along here, and, yeah, that would be the other. Inside the circle, so this would be the larger, if we were gonna do one pavilion, this would be the area to put a larger one.
Okay.
If we were gonna do two, this would be the secondary location. And, you know, that would be the secondary location. This is just.
More of a smaller.
Yeah, more of a smaller one. If we want to do one here, we could do two smaller ones, however, the budget works. And this right here, hard to believe is a swing, believe it or not. That would be just a good shaded area for a swing. So that's what we were proposing there. Kind of concentrating on this area being phase one, this area being phase two, and leaving it for any future plans, but leaving this open for frisbee or soccer, any kind of, recreational activities, because it's most open. Yes, we talked about the material, trees. What you can't tell from this angle, there's obviously residences right here, and these trees serve as a really good screen. We would propose doing something similar along this way. Right now, we've just got a hill of juniper, providing no privacy to people in their backyards, but either on this side of the street or the other, putting some kind of screening, that could go a long way just to privacy, for privacy and so forth. And then, I think a fence has been brought up at one point. Certainly would be a bad idea to consider fences along the streets for all frisbees and stuff to not, get intermingled with traffic. The track itself, that's obviously going to be a costly endeavor. There's a lot of fundraising opportunities. I believe we had talked about doing some pavers, maybe doing this in sections, the engraving of bricks. We wanted to reserve some areas, primarily right here, maybe in the middle, for memorials, maybe boulders, stones, artwork, some way to celebrate local artists. There's plenty of opportunity here, and that will be around the pavilion, featured places throughout the park, and another opportunity to raise funds. Things to be considered for future, just to make it more, hospitable. Things that I would keep in mind. One, it's hard to bring people this far away without, quite frankly, a way to relieve themselves. So in future, for future planning, for me, I just envision, a restroom right here. Obviously, that entails plumbing, electricity. I think electricity would go a long way to these pavilions, fans, lighting. I think at some point security, would also be a consideration there for electricity to get run to it. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, thoughts on my doodles here.
Adam, how many feet is the walking path? I know it's 6 feet wide. How many linear feet of it?
So it's a quarter mile, which is about 1,600 feet. 1,600 feet by 6 feet is what's proposed.
What would be the steepest gradient on that? It seems like it slips.
It does, and I don't
And
have.
that could be an issue.
I don't have a firm number for what the actual gradient would be, but I know that this whole area right here, the upper portion, is the steepest, and as it gets down closer to the stream, it levels out, which is why these two areas were selected. We would be intentional with the placement of the walkway. I just kind of went right over this outlet, right over this culvert, but that would need to be considered as well. We don't want to put it directly below it and have it get washed out. We're considering maybe a bridge over it. We don't want to get too close to the street on this side, so yeah, but that is certainly a consideration that would have been made.
Well, I'm thinking like if it's something that's wheelchair compliant, whatever, you wouldn't be able to have a seat.
Right. So we went as recently as this afternoon for that very reason, and we mentioned being ADA compliant. We had thought about maybe putting some stairs right here, which would be coming from this area. That would be the only place that we could see putting stairs. These locations, the elevation and the grade, I think, would be sufficient with ramps going down to it. So, yes, sir.
All right. Would I be correct in assuming that the structures you talked about would be subcontracted? Do you guys do that work yourself, or you subcontract?
Subcontracted, and that comes right into like the permits and so forth. I'm not sure if that would be, I guess you guys would handle pulling the permits for it. We've got the, designs for it, but
Okay.
So it's going to be mostly concrete, walk path with the paved bricks around it?
As is proposed, the walking path would be gravel, or what's called crush and run. It's a mixture of 57
57.
gravel with a fine powder that compacts down. You see it on a lot of parking pads that haven't been paved yet, but it is a good primary base for whatever would come next.
And that is ADA
Yeah.
compliance. Just a reminder, if you're gonna speak, please turn your mics on.
Okay. Just as far as, well, you're a hiker too, but I'm a hiker, sure. But anyway, I know that the crush and run kind of thing is considered to be a good surface. And actually, like paving for people who are going to do more than maybe one walk around, they actually prefer not to have a hard surface. They prefer, and the crush and run kind of absorbs the moisture and actually, over time, makes a firmer surface. So it's pretty good stuff, and it's cheaper too.
Well, it does compact, and I'm a runner as well, and I avoid running on sidewalks and asphalt for that very reason. So, yeah, I think the crush run would be a good alternative and less costly, at least on the initial.
Adam, can you give us some sense of annual maintenance cost for this proposed project?
Ballpark, we were anywhere from $850 to $1,000 a month. That would, in addition, I didn't even cover just more beautification. We had talked about putting, planting beds right here. Planting beds would flank, would complement all of these structures. There would be shade-loving, low-maintenance plants. We're not trying to keep everything too manicured. The more natural, the better. And then from a cost standpoint as well, it would keep that cost down.
Okay.
I have a question about, we were given a 50-foot stay away from here zone by the EPA. So have you included that in the walkway as well?
We would keep all the structures and the walkway out of that boundary.
Okay.
And in our conversations today, as far as the cleanup, the number that we heard was 25 feet.
Mhm.
I certainly like to, I don't want to push that. So,
Right.
50 makes everybody feel better. We're good with that. But as far as cleaning up that area, we would be permitted to do that as long as it's done with hand tools, chainsaws, weed eaters. We just can't take anything that would either further compact or disrupt the soil, certainly take down no trees, disrupting the root system.
I don't want to take down any trees, I just want to get rid of all that dead stuff.
Yeah, the kudzu and the dead,
Yeah.
it's just for, those are the invasive species.
That's
that
horrible.
Taylor and the EPA has said, please push that back. But,
All right, thanks. Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Lynn.
absolutely.
The next one, Adam, Whitescapes. All right. So the next presentation is from
I think they're.
Whitescapes.
Hey, how's it going? I'm
Good.
from Quiet Skates. I got smaller papers right here to pass around to kind of show the blueprints.
And if you don't mind, if you'll turn that microphone on and use that, so that, we're live streamed. Did you turn it on? It should be on.
All right, yep.
Thank you.
All right, what we've proposed is something a little bit different. Given the topograph of the property, it creates some challenges as far as being able to build stuff all over the place. Disc golf is something that's become popular. There's not a lot of interactive things to kind of do in the area to get people outside. So we thought this park would be a good spot to maybe do a miniature putting style type course for kids to play, or older folks that want to get out, walk around, do some exercise. It is intimidating to go out to one of the bigger courses like they have in Hamilton Mill and Monroe that people can't always throw 600 feet. So given in the community, we play all the time. It's just something I've heard that people would like something where they could go do, 100, 150 foot shots, make it inside some goals, have some fun, get the kids out there. Everybody can be a little bit competitive. Does everybody have a little copy of this right here?
Yep.
Yes.
Cool. So the red area has a lot of trees up over in the corner. We thought that might be a good spot to be able to put a hammock beach style area where people could bring their own hammocks, hang those up on poles. I do have some pictures here that can be passed around.
Okay,
It's kind
great.
of got a bunch of different stuff. These are becoming more popular for people that just want to hang out. A lot of people are camping and doing outdoor adventure stuff. If you're going to be hiking or into any kind of outdoor sport, usually they are into hammocks too. So, given a spot for that, I kind of envision that area being a little bit of a sandy area. So if you want to take your kids out there to play around in the sand while you're trying to relax, that could go up towards where there's already some trees. And that's pretty easy. You can use telephone poles. That's another way to be able to get artistic with local artists to design some metal columns that incorporate something with the city or the park names or something like that on there. And then that would give you something to tie your hammocks to. I think there is a spot for 2 pavilions up towards where the parking lot already kind of is. I envision those being a little bit more artsy, like a canvas style, like sails or whatnot. That's in that packet kind of going around. They're a little bit more cost effective. They do last for a good little while and hold up to 200-mile-an-hour winds. It's a cheap way to give some shade coverage. Aside from that, you can complement those with smaller styles with park benches kind of set out throughout the park. So as you're playing, you get winded, you need to take a break. There's an area, I think we got room for probably 3 or 4 benches with some little shade canopies. Those would kind of go along the right side of the property because there's not much shade over that way. And I would keep those kind of more towards the bottom of the hill because that's where you're going to get exhausted, kind of walking up and down that terrain. In between the pavilions, I think that's a cool space to be able to utilize, maybe a concrete cornhole set or table tennis or something like that. You can kind of see those going around. Those are really popular amongst parks inside Atlanta and things like that. This concept is getting really popular out in Texas and California. These really artsy cities like Austin are grabbing hold of parks with this kind of style because it's just drawing more of the youth and getting them outside. Being able to work with local artists to design different cool stuff. I forget the name of the park. It's like Amarillo putting or something like that in Texas. But they work with local artists to create obstacles that you can put in between your tee-off boxes and your goalposts. That can be local history stuff. That can be statues. Anything that kind of gives a little bit of obstacle for you to be able to play that sport. Restrooms up at the pavilions, we kind of figured there need to be something up that way since there's going to be the flea market along that road. It gives people a way to interact and stuff while they're shopping and doing those events and things like that as well. So you'll be able to get 4 seasons out of the park, still leave it open and accessible, I think, to a lot of different people. Given the topographic makes it hard for people with wheelchairs and people that can't walk, on unstable surfaces. So that would be more incorporated towards the top where the pavilions are and where that parking space would be to kind of accommodate those people. They can look down, kind of watch the activities that are going on. I know we talked about doing pavers to be able to raise money and stuff for the park. We think a good opportunity for those is to be as a base for the pavilions, given how many are sold. Another thing would be the tee-off boxes. They're about 4 feet by 8 feet, and it'd be great to get all the local people on there so you can kind of see them and read them while you're teeing off or practicing your putts. Pushing the wood line back, I mean, he kind of discussed a lot of that needs to get done. We're along the same lines as that, pushing all the kudzu and all that kind of overgrowth out. There are a few dead trees that are some concerns that need to be taken care of that he addressed as well. That's all pretty kosher along those lines. I do think the fence would be good on the left and right side of the property, along with keeping people out of the creek at some point. Plus, that gives you even more of a buffer zone to kind of keep that stuff from creeping into the park. And that's pretty much what we've come up with for Oak Street.
Hey, thanks for the nice presentation. It's a unique concept. In Jackson County as well as in Gwinnett County, they have a disc golf. I play disc golf, so I get to know all this Gwinnett County stuff. In terms, you have seen the site, you don't have a lot of trees there, and do you have anyone who can design this 9-hole, because this is 2-acre lot, about max.
Right.
It's not a big one.
It's not.
It's
That's why we say kind of doing a miniature putt-putt style kind of course.
That's right.
The shots will be anywhere from 50 feet to like 100 feet.
That's right.
We can design that ourselves, we can get all the goalposts ourselves. One of the pictures going around kind of shows how we put those goalposts in the ground. They're anchored with concrete, you can lock them in place. If you wanted to, you could put some holes where somebody from the county or whatnot can come and move them around if you wanted to do that as well.
Yeah, I have seen a similar disc golf course in Texas, Dallas, and Austin. It's in a small place where people can come and go. And the cute thing, they have a bunch of butterflies attracting that place, so that's a good possibility. Looking at the budget, you're talking about 130 grand to 175-ish. Just I added everything.
What's your budget?
What's your budget?
I am not sure at this time. I have about 9 days to kind of throw everything together. So
Okay.
I'm still waiting to hear back from some of the vendors. I just recently got confirmation on the concrete gates. I know that those are built with reinforced concrete. They pretty much told me you could park a VW Bug on top of the ping pong sites.
You can.
They're super strong.
Yeah.
So is this something like you would do on the slope going down?
Yes, to get you down to the beach area.
Mhm.
Yes.
Have you guys done?
Natural stones, black stones.
So have you guys done a similar project in the close?
We specialize in estate-style properties. We work on a bunch of multi-million-dollar homes, which are huge. 2 acre property of this size is not abnormal for us.
I see. But have you guys built disc golf course in other places?
What's that?
Disc golf course, did you build a similar one somewhere else?
We haven't built
So
one
first time.
anywhere, no, other than our own personal property.
All
There you go.
Good, good.
I have nothing. Do you have anything?
And you're located out of
Commerce?
Winder.
Winder?
Oh, Winder.
Winter.
All right. Do you guys have any other questions? If not, we can go to the next
Thank
one.
you.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you, Corbin.
The next one is Green Fund.
It's going to be your Paramount,
Paramount.
this one.
Oh, this one.
Good evening.
Hey, guys.
Hello again. Hope you guys are all well.
Yes, sir.
Seems like we have a running theme for a design now. It's not, just me and the lady from Fort Gully weighing in with pictures this time. So, running theme, we've established the EPA 50-foot mark, which pretty much kills a lot of the usable slopage of the park. My design pretty much hasn't changed. Still gonna use the black ornamental fencing that we discussed last time, 8 foot to go. Pretty much the allowable length and width that the EPA has predetermined. With doing anything that we can to satisfy Ms. Marsh's request for removal of all things dead and unsightly.
Yes, exactly.
That is,
Thank you, thank you.
bullet point number 1 in my book, satisfy Ms. Marsh. Running theme, 3 pavilions, both into the property and 1 in the middle with hammock areas split. All of the pavilions are gonna be timber structures. My design was going to be with a white pine with a white pine timber structure with a, navy blue tin roof to follow the city of Houston's colors. Along the fence line, we were going to utilize the, pathway that was going to be provided by the fundraisers, for the engraved bricks, to be determined on width based on the fence. It could quite literally be the entire grassy area of that area, you know, if we could. But, you know, whatever the engineers decide, is, you know, make what's relevant based on what we have. To go on with, Fern Gully and Mr. Corbin's, themes to utilize local artistry. You have a couple of unsightly issues that are just not gonna be able to go away, such as the manhole cover for the storm drain, and other entrances for the parking and stuff to that effect. Really just being able to utilize, you know, just to make ugly things pretty. You know. As far as, the privacy going along the rear of the property, I'd say the rear, if you're coming in from Oak Street, heading towards 332, on the right side where the townhomes are, we can utilize, you know,
privacy, in many ways. Foliage such as Leland or Evermind or any, giant growth of, whatever's inside budget, and also taking a census from the area. Does it need to happen? Is that a cost that, those people want? That can be done throughout the stages of the project, And so, beauty part about doing this in grants and stages is that we get a little bit of flexibility and change orders for something like this. We can, be pretty flexible. Ms. Marcia requested no lighting last time, even if solar. So the only thing that has changed from my design is the removal of the lighting. The foliage will change to, along the fence line to incorporate Ms. Marcia's request for a hedgerow. Standard boxwood.
Yep.
Simple, nothing, very easy to maintain. Hypoallergenic, which is great. We don't want anybody having any sort of allergy episode based on our park experience. We were able to locate some ADA or handicap friendly grilling stations for our pavilion. That's really about the only handicap accessible thing that we're going to be able to utilize for this park. The slope is extremely steep, and our budget is going to be absolutely destroyed if we have to put concrete walkways, staircases, handrails, anything. The slope and the amount of linear feet that we would need to have as far as a walkway or pathway for anybody that's handicapped to get down to the lower end of the property would be astronomical to this property. And with us having a very tight budget to work with already, I really think the utilization for the top half of the park, from the 50 feet mark from the EPA up to the road, is going to be our honeypot, going to be our prime area for work. It, for the most part, can very easily grade. We can bring in some local fill dirt. Of course, after we have all the soil samples and everything, make sure that the EPA is running right parallel with us so that we don't drop any feathers. The tree maintenance that is on the property now will need to be addressed, and that is the main large tree that's in the center that has the telephone cables, or whatever non-power cables that are running into that. We will need to have that tree pruned either by whomever has the right to do it, or we can do it, whichever. All trades be utilized locally, including tree services, grading, lawn care, all nursery located or all nursery involvement will all be right here inside Bushton or Jackson County at first. Any questions?
How many pavilions?
3. 3 12 by 16 by 18 pavilions. They're going to be 8 by 8 timber structures. The quote that I have used currently is from Kata Frames in downtown Jefferson. They have a very unique setup where they utilize a steel foot that goes on the end that goes on the bottom of each timber, so that it prevents rot, prevents premature. Thank you. Decomposition. And it's an incredible design. It's their design, and I honestly think it looks very elegant, but also has a sport feel to it as well.
And unlike your last presentation, you would not do anything to the Oak Street Road.
Well, that was since we were told we were not allowed to close that road down, which I still feel would be the best application to utilize for space, but I also understand that we can't just go closing roads for cars. So, utilizing the fence to go up until the road, that'll come down 3/3, come down inside of the DOT easement, which is 20 feet.
Yep.
So from the edge of the road, 20 feet inside on both sides, and then 50 feet up from the bottom, which the 50 feet up, just so that I'm sure we've all seen the park at this point. So pretty much anything dead and ugly is inside that 50 feet line. So much like the gentleman from Fern Gully said, hand tools only, no disturbance of the ground. Trying not to disturb anybody or anything downstream. But it is gonna be a task, that is for sure.
What's your, total?
Total budget?
Total?
I do have a budget, I give you my apologies, did not get it up from the drop dead right now, so I have it ready. Hang on, 1 second. I can walk through it if you need. Total budget for this project is going to be $195,000.
All right. Thanks, Rick.
I can break it down for you if needed, or
When we go to the next stage, yeah, definitely we need the breakdown. Yes,
Just
any
email it to me, and I'll get it to everybody.
no problem.
Thank you.
Good.
All right, thanks, Rick. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the next line item is going to be Farmers Market Monthly Update. Maria?
Go for it.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, so the last 2 weeks we had our first evening market. The first one was on the 5th. I think it went well. The heat, it was still pretty hot. But we had a nice turnout. We had, from what I counted, around 240 people that attended,
Oh, wow.
about 15 vendors.
On the depot?
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah, and like I was saying, it was still hot. We were trying to get away from the heat. It was still hot, but it was definitely a nice vibe. A lot of people liked the grassy area, and we had music from the depot on the stage, and people were dancing
Yeah.
and hanging out. The depot allowed us to use their tables for food that people bought. But I think it was a nice turnout for the evening.
So what do you think,
Evening
Maria? Do you think this is the better spot for us compared to town center in terms of parking?
What do you think?
The
At
parking?
least I think it wasn't
The good
as
thing
bad.
about being over there is it's on a Saturday evening, so we have Bell Avenue where we're requesting that vendors park, and also in front of the Stansel building. So we reserve, there's 26 or 28 spaces at the depot for the guests, and I feel like
It
we
wasn't
haven't
as
heard
bad,
anything as
yeah.
far as parking goes.
And it wasn't even like the first weekend. It wasn't even, I feel like, as crowded in that parking lot. Some people were parking across by City Hall, but it was nice too because I feel like if people are driving past on 53, it's visible. People stopped in when we were even setting up to see what was going on. So I think it was nice, and there were some nice shady areas too with the trees.
That's great. Is there anything else we need to do for marketing? Are we kind of in a stabilized mode, or are we in a good shape?
I think we're in this, and for the most part, stabilized. The only thing I was going to say, if anybody knows any more produce vendors or more like that, we only have a few produce. Sometimes they get sick and whatnot. So if you hear of anybody, invite
And
them
we're
over.
really big on letting the vendors know that, as far as Maria and I, we can only do so much marketing, but it's their business and we really want to help them. So we're always tagging, the businesses on our Facebook and Instagram. So Maria and I try really hard to push it out there, and they do too. They're really good about, join us this Saturday because it's, they're promoting their business too. So,
Excellent.
yep.
Thanks, Maria and Jessica. In terms of the budget, are we in a net zero concept, or you guys are kind of a self-sustaining so far?
Yeah.
We've tried really, really hard to not go into our budget at all. I think last weekend the salsa music was provided by Four Brothers. This past Saturday we did request $100 to go to our bluegrass guys. And besides marketing, we really haven't had to dig into our budget at all. And we have 2 sponsorships. So.
Yeah, this season I feel like, I can't think of the numbers right now, but I feel like we've barely used anything.
Yeah, and I know Mr. Bob is also helping us as we go to look at the budget too, so.
Excellent. Okay, thanks, Bob. The next line item, I know we have been talking about Crestwind Volunteer. That's how we brought Marcia a long time ago, just having that volunteer fair. So what's the update on it, guys?
Yeah, so last Saturday we had a volunteer fair at Crestwind, and Mr. Bob and his lovely wife, Lou Merle, came and helped me. And we had a good time. We had about 10 volunteers sign up. One of them, who I actually met already, is Nish Patel. He was supposed to come tonight, but I don't see him here. But he's also in Rotary, so he's really interested in being part of the community. Kind of gave him a little tour, and we have a couple other ladies, two ladies by the name of Debbie, and then Cindy, who also want to help. So it really helps. And we also have people that had to get through summer, and now they're able to help this fall, which is going to be great. So
Excellent.
we're excited.
But just to add on, that we were really quite busy at the, isn't it on now? Yeah. It was on, I just was too far away.
Yes, sir.
Whatever. Can you, no,
You
never
can
mind.
push it down for me too.
So anyway, you can hear me in the back? No.
Yeah, he can hear. Yeah.
Go, Rob.
Oh, Ross can, he can.
Thank you, Rod.
Anyway, we were really quite busy. There was a good stream of people, going through, and, a lot of people stopped and thought whether they sign up to volunteer or not. They asked, well, what is the DDA? What do they do? You know, what do you guys do? And so on. So it was not only, from the perspective, volunteer perspective, but also from an educational perspective, because most people didn't know anything, never heard of the DDA or, that sort of thing. So it was really good.
And we were fortunate, Houston Coffee gave us little vouchers that was, get a coffee, get a free pastry. So Mr. Bob had those, and he was like, all right, well, I'm going to give you this form, but you get your free pastry after that. It was a really nice event. Everyone was really nice, so it was good to be a part of. So we'll be in the next ones for sure. So.
Excellent. Thanks, Bob and Jessica, to make this one happen. So the next line item is the pickleball tournament and barbecue festival. Then the last meeting in the board, we talked about partnering with the Crestwind and to kick off some pickleball event. So the city manager, Jessica, Tracy, and myself, and the mayor and council member, we met with a couple of Crestwind organizers on the pickleball. So it's basically a brainstorming session, and we kind of figuring it out what is the best way to kind of pivot ourselves and go to the next level. So the next progress, what we are hoping to accomplish, we want to meet with the Crestwind manager, Jennifer Landis.
Yeah, so Jennifer has already directed me to Chelsea, and I spoke with Chelsea, and we're going to come up with a plan and meet with her boss and her, and we're going to keep
good.
working on it. So.
Chelsea runs the social event
Yeah.
in Crestwind,
So
and all of the clubs answer to her. And it is the pickleball club that answers and schedules through her whatever goes on at Crestwind. So as a result, she's the one that has to direct that, and she will work with the club to determine the exact date and time and when it will be
All right.
occurring.
So as we discussed in the last 2 years, we want to really refine the concept of barbecue festival to piggyback with pickleball. So our hope is to sometime in spring or fall of next year in 2024, at least once we know all the moving parts, we kind of have a good game plan to go to the next level. So I think Jessica and Jennifer, they're helping us to get the
Sure.
ball rolling. So we will come back to the board and kind of update you guys.
Well, keep in mind that the pickleball club has several tournaments throughout the year. So when we're talking about a barbecue and pickleball festival, that would only be once or twice a year. The rest of the time, their tournaments are with other pickleball clubs.
Yeah, and that's really what we kind of are hoping to go with, is to reach out to the other neighborhoods, like we
Right.
have Del Webb, Chateau, Traditions, and also the Georgia Club. So we're hoping to make it a big deal in our area. So.
Right, yeah.
That's good.
But it has to be done through the pickleball club.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yes, ma'am.
And the next line item is going to have a DDA booth at Fall Festival. I think before we start the time capsule and the time clock, we bounced that idea, and I know we kind of inaugurated the time capsule, and you guys did a
Yes,
great
we did.
job. And so, does the board want to have a booth at the fall festival, or are you guys are available? Jessica can jump in to help us out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll help as well.
Yeah, last
And,
year, Joe and I did it on Saturday.
Saturday, right?
Yes,
Right.
sir.
We didn't have one on Sunday, it was just
No, we
Saturday.
did it on Saturday.
And I made a little sign-up sheet. It's just for y'all to see kind of the hours, but we can tweak it however we want with everyone's availability. It's just something I put together for you guys to look
Yeah,
at.
he and I were there from 9 to 3, wasn't it?
Something
Do y'all
like
have a
that.
preference on what location?
The Prime.
The Prime?
Wherever the shade is.
Right, well, we had our tent out there set up underneath, and we actually shared this space with the art council, who
Yeah.
was selling raffle tickets. And it was right there in front of the depot, right there.
Yeah,
Yeah, you know, they
next to
moved
the
over
depot.
here now.
Yeah.
But we'll talk afterwards.
Yes, Jessica can
Coordinate
coordinate
that.
with you
Yep.
guys.
Sure.
For sure.
All right, in that case, I think DDA will have a booth at the fall festival.
Okay,
Great.
All right,
perfect.
all right.
I'll be out of town.
All right, thanks, guys. And one more line item, Larry's Garage update. So in response to the RFP, as all we know, Matt Rupel gave a proposal. Tracy, myself, the city manager, Jessica, and again the mayor and council member Debbie Martin, we met with Matt Rupel, and we kind of went through all the process where we can get input or feedback from the public. So Jessica started the survey going so that we are all on the same page, so we take the input from the public. So that is a first step, which I think Jessica got more than about 200 people. So the ball is rolling. So in response to everything, just to put it in the nutshell, so Matt basically is going in a methodical way of looking at the structure first, look at the design aspects, and the next step is to really figure out how to implement the entire project. As all we know, we are talking couple of $1 million. So the ball is rolling, and it's going to be a process. So in other words, it's more
Is
of a...
he going to go by the one that he had given us in the past?
That is not my understanding. That's a starting point. As we go along, the public will give their input, and the architect will work with us. So as a DDA, our job is to kind of work with the council members and work with the public and help them to navigate the whole
Well, if
process.
he wants community input, has he scheduled a time to do that kind of thing?
Yes, he has given 60 days. So once we go to the next level in terms of we form the public-private partnership, at that time, we are going to set the clock. There will be a public hearing at multiple times where public can give their feedback and also clarify any questions or doubts with Matt Rupel's architect and engineer if the mayor and council, they want to take this path. So it's still in early stage, so hopefully in a month or two, we'll get a better clarity.
Well, so you're talking about the next 60 days, he's going to schedule public hearings for people to come and give their input as to what needs to be done to Larry's Garage.
Pending mayor and council's approval.
Okay.
So that is the most recent update on Larry's Garage. So it's a process. It's going to be more of a marathon than sprint. Given the size of the project, we need some flexibility so that we can accommodate the market demand and public input so that it's a sustainable project in the long run. So the new discussion I would like to, Bob, you guys, Bob comes with a strong financial background. So Bob met with Tiffany, Tracy, and myself. He met with everybody. So Bob is going through the entire financial statement, the balance sheet, and the P&L.
Okay.
So he can...
What I have for tonight anyway, so what I have for tonight is rather dated, as you can see. It actually deals with the period, the last fiscal year, which has been completed December 31st, 31st of 2022. So that may seem, well, why would we want to even talk about that? There's two reasons that I can think of. One is that having this information, even though it's older information, is new because the audit was completed and submitted to the city only, I don't know, about a month or so ago. So it is, in that respect, it's new even though it's old. And the other thing is just because I think we should know as we go forward with this year's budget and planning for next year's budget, it's good to know where we've been. So I'm just going to spend a couple minutes on this. The source of all the numbers on here, these are not my numbers. These are directly from the city's financial report, but it's all compacted together because the DDA's information is mingled with the other funds of the city, and also it's in a column way over to the right where it's hard to a little bit. Anyway, this is and also that I don't think all the DDA members see that. So here's the first part is the income statement, statement of revenues, expenditures, fund balance for the year, and that covers the 12-month period, all the revenues and all the expenditures. And the categories, I'm not going to try to necessarily explain what's in each category because these are the categories used in the financial report and how they're put together from more detailed information. I'm not, at this point in time, being new, I'm not really sure. But anyway, I think the important part to know is that the revenue for the DDA that was provided through DDA sources was $31,000. And the expenditures, well within budget, was $58,751. So the way it's presented in the financial report shows that the expenditures exceeded the revenues by $27,449. Now this was, it was known when the budget was prepared that the city was going to contribute $50,000. And so that's in the next line below, transfer in $50,000. That's the city's contribution. And in a sense, it's a revenue from the city to the DDAs of support. So when you take that into account, the actual budget surplus and change in fund balance was plus $22,251. So that's like fund balance is in private sector sort of like retained earnings equivalent. So we had $663 from the 2021 year. So at the end of the year, our financial position was $23,204, which basically is money sitting in the bank. So that's what happened during the year. And then the bottom part of this is the balance sheet. The balance sheet is just a statement of position on December 31st, the result of the revenues and expenditures. So the assets, cash and equivalent, $24,122. We did have a few bills to pay of $918 on December 31st. So the fund balance was $23,204, which matches the upper part of the statement. I might just mention the way government finance, they categorize fund balance in different categories and priorities. And the DDA's fund balance is a restricted fund balance, which means basically it's our money, but it can't be used without approval by the governing authority of the city. So that should be kept in mind. So is there any questions on?
What's our balance now?
Well, let me just tell you, and that's a very good question, and I still am working to be getting a recipient of the information for the current year so that I can present reports on that to the DDA, and that's a work in progress.
I was actually meeting with Tiffany this week to get updated on all the finances for the downtown development, or they just haven't had that opportunity yet to meet.
Right.
No, I mean, the last time we met, Tiff was saying, this is the balance you have here, this is the balance you have there. There has to be a balance somewhere
Yeah.
of what we have left to spend.
Yes.
And at that particular point, she was saying somewhere around $9,000 or $10,000. And that money, according to Tiffany, has to be spent this year because we can't roll it over.
Right.
And so our question at that particular point was, okay, we have some things in the budget that we had mentioned before, so can we go ahead and spend those, and spend that $9,000 or whatever it is now in the fall, so since we can't roll it over to 2024. So I guess my question is, what is our balance? So that we know if we have some expenditures that we need to put forth, that we go ahead and spend that money now.
So let me say this, Marcia. I'm not going to be, I'll be out of the country during the next meeting of the DDA, but as soon as I get the information, should be getting it promptly,
Okay.
I will, by email, send a current financial statement to all the DDA members,
Okay.
and which will include the kind of thing that you're asking, Marcia. It's not available today, but it may be available tomorrow.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
so
I just need to
I understand where you're coming from, and I'll do the best I can to address it. Believe me, because I want to do it too,
Yeah.
and I want to have a financial report from DDA on a standard agenda item, so I can update DDA as to what's happening and anything significant that we need to be aware of.
So relative to Marcia's comment about the funds having to be spent this year or else, what happens to them if we don't?
That's the case with all government funds. All government funds expire at the end of the year unless they're in some kind of a capital projects fund, which would carry over. But an operating budget, this is government 101 accounting, that budgets expire at the end of the fiscal year.
That's right. As all we know, in the first year, we kept some money towards the capital project, capital infrastructure project. That is the one kind of feeding some of the GDOT project here and there. And
You mean $744,000 is not enough at this particular point in time?
yes,
When we
ma'am.
are talking about $7,000 or $8,000, when we have some expenses that would be taken care of
That's right.
by that fund.
No,
by those
definitely.
funds.
No, that's an excellent point. Out of 746,000, the city's contribution is about 140,000. That's what I'm going to update you. We had a meeting with GDOT, Jennifer, and the city engineer and planner. So as we informed, it's going to be a planning phase. Is going to be for the next 5 to 7 years. So every year, DDA or the city, we need to come up with almost close to 20 to 25 grand. So once we have some capital project, once we wipe out everything, then we start from zero for next year. So again, my suggestion to the board, we don't want to burn all the money. Perhaps we can have some cushion. I know Maria is looking at me for a beautification project. She didn't spend enough money for this year. So I would recommend maybe a few $1,000 for the
Well,
beautification
and we
project.
had some that we were talking about in the Historic Preservation Committee as well, and some things that could be purchased before the end of the year
Sure.
that fall well into that
Yep.
$8,000 or $9,000 they were talking about the last time we met,
That's good.
so that we could get some feel for some things that we could move along. I mean, I can appreciate the fact that we need to supply $25,000 out of the DDA funds when we're only receiving 50 from the city, because we do have to pay Jessica. We do have, at this particular point in time, we have a storage unit that we're having to pay for. Now, there is something that looks like we're going to be able to move and not have that expense. But what I'm saying is, we need to be much clearer about what in our funds we can be spending for our projects.
That's right. Yeah, definitely. I think that's a very good question, Marcia. When we formed the DDA, there are 4 pillars for the DDA. One is historical thing. The next one comes the beautification. The next one is the organization. When we started the budget, we gave $5,000 to the historical committee. So that is a good startup fund to get the ball rolling. As we keep going along, we would like to have a very balanced approach so that when we are ready to apply for a Main Street program, the 4 pillars are kind of well established, and each committee leader is going to really grow to the next level, then it's a balanced DDA we can take it. Right now, we are focusing heavily on the historical side. As things move along next year, maybe beautification become a priority.
Well, let me say this, but if the Historic Preservation Committee had $5,000, we haven't spent $5,000.
I think if I recall, the mural project, I think, came from the budget when we voted on it. That's close to $7,000 or so. That was my understanding.
Which project?
The art mural on the wall, brick wall.
Yeah, that was from the DDA.
Yeah.
That
So
was not Historic
since this
Preservation.
discussion came in, perhaps for 2024, Bob can help us to set aside amount for what the historical committee wants. That was my understanding, talking to the mayor and council. They give one flat, fixed one for the DDA. Then as a DDA member, perhaps before the retreat with the new mayor and council, we can all have a discussion with them, hey, where do you want us to really focus on? That's a point of future discussion. That's what I understood.
Well, I would like a better clarification as to where, not only how much money the city is giving us, but which projects we are setting within those
Yes.
funds. Because that gives us some idea as to how we can progress throughout the year in order to get done those things that we
No, definitely. For today's meeting, we got
okay. Tell them, this is what we're going to do with that money, and this is where, unfortunately, a lot of times getting a budget takes forever.
Let me get back involved in this discussion a little bit. 2 points. One is I don't know what happened and how this current budget was put together, but I will be well aware of how next year's budget is put together. And what I said at the last meeting, preparing a budget is very important because this is your guideline for what you can do for the next year. So maybe with this year's budget, hopefully we'll have some better understood guidelines as to what's in and what's not in some line items and so on. And maybe we'll, like I said, I don't know anything about how it's put together, but we can put it together with a lot of more care this year, and we'll put as much as we can depending on what we get from the city. The other thing that I wanted to say, I want to clarify one of my remarks because I know budgets expire, but one thing we should keep in mind is just as in the 2022, with the city giving us $50,000 and assuming that transaction is completed, which I assume that it will be, what we don't spend, because the DDA is a separate accounting fund, it's separate from the general fund. So because of that, even though the budget expires for operations, if there's any money left over, which there should be some amount, I have no what, it would be put back in this fund balance that would add to the $24,000 that will eventually someday be used for something for the DDA. I don't know what, but that's to be determined. We don't need to get into that right now. But the point is, even though the budget expires, we don't necessarily, there's still a monetary opportunity and gain for the DDA.
Thanks for the clarification, Bob. But Master made an excellent point. Definitely we need to have some kind of ceiling or the roof for the county, so that way we get clarity and the historical committee start planning something. So the next year budget, perhaps we will have a cap for each committee. Is there any other new line item you guys
I
want to
also, want to say that the mayor and council wants a recommendation for the Oak Street project by the next meeting, so.
Yes, so if y'all can review them and just give a recommendation of which, part landscape that y'all like, the next meeting, they do want to go ahead and start moving on that. Y'all next meeting.
September.
Yeah.
So we have enough time. So
You got a month to kind of review them, call them, talk to them, whatever. But we do need council needs a recommendation from the DDA.
in terms of recommendation, can we give the prayer of 1, 2, 3, or we need to pick only one and give to the,
You can do it 1, 2, 3.
what do you guys think? That way we have some flexibility that will blend well with what the mayor and council they want to go with it. Based on what we heard today, so we have a 3 different approach to the same project, and which will kind of align with the goals of the DDA. For example, this golf and another guy is coming with the pavilion, the one guy is coming with the multi-use path, so there are multiple ways. So perhaps we can sleep on it for some time, and then can we email around and come up with the game plan that you guys can assemble everything?
And then you'll come back and fill that 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
Your recommendation, I think.
So that way, mayor, they have some flexibility to look into it. All right? Okay. Thanks, Jessica. If there is no other line item, I will make a motion to end this meeting. All in favor? Aye. All. Thanks, guys.
When is our next meeting?
Yeah,
When's the next meeting scheduled right now?
It's always Monday of each month.
So that,
The 11th.
September the 11th? Yeah.
Jessica, will you make a note that I unfortunately will not be present for that meeting?
Out of the country.
If I can't leave, I won't be vacation.